Good morning, students. In this video, we are going to continue the case study on cybersecurity hands-on about the installation hardware. So, an overview of this video, we are going to discuss about the basic components of an computer system and the installation hardwares for the desktop pedestal along with the manufacturer instructions for a server room. In the server room, how the sliding rails rack servers are going to be installed, and common device networks installation also going to be get viewed in this particular video. Let's go inside. Installing hardware. A computer hardware is generally not an operating system specific, although some platforms are unable to boot certain OSs. The basic components for desktop systems are processors, memory, display or a monitor, a keyboard, pointing devices, and UPS systems and cablings. For all of the component plus a network cable, some systems are more bundled, such as an laptop and Apple Macs, with bundle everything except the wireless mouse and wireless keyboards. For pointing devices and the keyboards, the standard connector is the universal serial bus USB. Everyone aware about it. Except that the absolute IBM PS2 connectors are still in use in some shops. Wired networks, Cat5 cables use RJ45 connectors, although wired network cables are standardized on RJ45. There are dozens of competing standards for fiber optic cables compatibility with the network interface cards, NIC cards, and network switch components. Computers monitors usually conform to one of the prevalent standard video graphic adapter VGA card, as we are aware about it, or a digital video interface DVI. The standard power cables is called the pigtail and conforms to each country's electrical standard. Example, India uses a 50 hertz frequency with the 230 volts or 220 volts of AC line, whereas in America, in the North America, it's going to be an 60 hertz. So it varies from the country. So usually there are separate pigtails for the monitors and the pedestal. So while we are going to use the power cables, we have to check in for which country or where which is going to be used over there. Based on that, the electrical power cable can be get used, and the specification has been mentioned clearly upon the power cables. While purchasing that, we have to take the necessary steps to verify prior usage of this particular power cable for our computer systems. Let's see the next one, how the installation hardwares are going to be for the desktop pedestal. We will see about the manufacturer instruction. The manufacturer instruction specifies about setting up the system. A typical hardware setup sequence for a desktop pedestal includes, we will see the following. Position the component on top of the desk. Optionally, if the system has a separate floor pedestal, then it is placed underneath the desk along with the UPS with the backside and connected port facing the installer. Connect the monitor pigtail and display cable and secure the screw thumbs, if any. While connecting this, we have to carefully verify whether the screw thumbs are going to be there or thumb screws are going to be there. Just we have to properly fix those things. Then we need to feed the monitor, mouse and cables, maybe in keyboard cables or in any accessories cables, down through a desktop opening or around the back or side. And we need to connect the network, monitor, mouse and display cables to the pedestal. UPS may be need to connect the battery by removing a panel and an instruction sticker, and then fastening an internal plug. So we aware about that when we are going to connect the system to an UPS, the necessary precaution steps as well as the instructions given by the manufacturer of this UPS and the particular desktop to be get followed. So based on that, the UPS can be appropriately connected and the same can be get connected to the desktop for the power fluctuation, for the power connectivity. And while connecting the pigtail to the pedestrian and then connect it to the UPS. Connect the UPS to the electrical outlet, turn on the UPS, double check whether all the cable connections are properly connected. Then you can try to uh, do the switching operation. Always we need to verify the work. We should not make any assumption that it may be happened or we have did. So overconfidence may sometime may create some problem. So we have to make a proper verification without any assumptions. Then we need to turn on the computer and verify that the monitor display the boot sequence on the screen. If an operating system is installed, continue booting to check the keyboard, mouse, and network functionalities. Alternatively, it can be tested that system using bootable CDs or DVDs test tools such as a backtrack or a helix, etc. So this manufacturer instruction has to be get followed properly while we are going to install the hardwares for the desktop pedestal. Let's see how the same instructions is going to be useful for the server room. Let's discuss about the server room. For server room, rack mounted systems are generally come without a monitor or a keyboard. And here the vertical rack capacity is measured in a rack mountable unit. Usually a standard 19 inches server racks range from about 3 inch to nearly a 7 inch in height and 3 inch in depth. 19 inches is the outside width of the mounting uh, brackets. So when we are going to see about many rack come with the custom rails which allows the hardware to be rolled out of the rack like a drawer. A special cable guide hardware with Heinz prevents disconnections. A single user interface UI can serve an electric rack using an keyboard, video, mouse switch. A rack console is typically an one unit and mount on a movable rail with an integrated trackball rather than a mouse, a keyboard, and display. This KVM, actually the keyboard, video, mouse switches use standard connectors for the server and console cables, and some KVM use adapters and proprietary connectors on the KVM end. Uh, Sometimes can be converted many pedestals to rack mount servers also. Let's see about a sliding rail rack server. Let's see about the installation, typical installation sequences of this particular sliding rack. Unpack the server and its component first. Then you have to search a server rail and cable. The next affects the server rails to the 19-inch rack. Some rails require screws and some are screwless. A rack with a square hold brackets may require a special fastens nuts with clips to affect the brackets that we can from the front end of the rack. It can be extend the rails out of the rack and snap the server into rails. Retract the server into the rack. From the back of the rack, connect the network and KVM switching cables. For example, Oracle Sun System usually have a single USB cable for monitor and keyboard, whereas some other manufacturers may have their own different specifications. So that has to be taken care while installing the sliding rack server. Connect the pigtail to the server and UPS or UPS connected power strip. Double check that all cable connections are fastened properly. Sometimes any loose contact or sometimes any improper connections may lead a problem. So we must take utmost care for this particular connections. So priorly connecting this UPS to the pigtail, verify once. From the front end of the rack, power up the server. Some servers may many network devices are dedicated and always on. So verify your work using the KVM. Verify the functionality of the keyboard, mouse, and display connections. And note one main thing we have to consider here: do not connect the system to the network until it is patched and secured with anti-malware. Example, any antivirus or software firewall installations or some kind of protections. After you have taken those precautions, you can attach the network cable and test network connectivity. That is the most utmost care we people have to prior to connect the particular system or a particular server into a network, because without any antivirus or an anti-malware components installed in the server system, it may be possible to get corrupted by the viruses or malware, unknown malware from the internet. So kindly take a precautionary prior to connect to the internet. Check whether a patches and is secured with an anti-malware. So later you can connect or attach your network cable and test the network connectivity. Next, we can go to the common network devices. Here we can see a few common network devices. As first one as modem. A modem connect an internal network to telecommunication networks such as a digital subscriber line (DSL), T1, E1, T2, and E2 telecommunication provider services. A modulation and demodulation connects an internal network to a telecommunication. So hope we have come across with the modems, different types of modems all in the particular topics. So next one, firewall. Already a firewall or a network boundary device enforcing rules for separation between internal and external network communications. So it's going to protect you from the external malware, or it can avoid the malware entry into your particular system or a server. Next one, routers. A router interconnect network segments by routing and switching data using internet protocol. I mean IP addresses between segments. And router also translate the IP addresses and MAC address, medium access control addresses within a network segment. Each network interface card has a unique hardware and it has its unique hardware, a MAC address, so that it will be very easy to identify and easy to diagnose the problem through the routers. For Ethernets, a network segment is considered as broadcast. One send and all receive. Anyone can be a sender, and many of them or many of us may be a receiver. So this broadcast domain between computers whose NICs operate according to the carrier sends multiple access CSMA, a collision detection CD algorithm. I hope that you people have come across with the CSMA CD in computer communication network. So that algorithm is going to get used over here to network segment in the broadcast domain between the computers, I mean between the nodes. Finally, we're going to see about the network switches. So the network switches are a repeater devices which extends a network segment by mirroring all broadcast signals to additional cable connections. So in this video, we have come across with the installation hardware about a basic components of a system or a desktop, and a manufacturing instruction to install the hardware in a desktop and for a server room and a sliding rail rack server and a common network devices. Hope you people have some idea about the installation hardwares. So if you have any query, kindly you can post the queries to me. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you.